So, final full lesson on mass media. We're carrying on looking at media stereotypes. This part 3, class. We're sort of on page 136, but not really. This is a separate session, really. So we're going to study the mass media's portrayal of the different social classes, in particular the way the portrayal of the working class seems to have changed in the last 50 years. To analyse and understand the effects of that portrayal, I'm going to think. Keywords are stupid, common, undeserving, dignity of labour, explain that in a minute, chav, dull, violent, ignorant, posh, tough, snotty, hegemony, mentioning it a few times that word, I'll talk about it again today, agenda setting, and demonise. If you demonise a group, you make them look evil, you make them look bad, you're demonising them. Yeah? Lots of these words I'm guessing you already know the meaning of. Dole is an old-fashioned word for income support. Okay, so before 1960, how were the working class shown in the mass media? Well, if you look at the words that were used for them, reliable, steady, trustworthy, they're the salt of the earth. Yeah. This is the sort of images that were often pushed of the working class. When the working class weren't in the mass media that much, when they were, it was like this. They were decent, they were honest, they are respectable. The phrase here is the salt of the earth. Now, I've mentioned to you plenty of times before, when you want to know what's going on in a culture, look at the adjectives. These adjectives, describing words, are positive. At this point, when the mass media talked about the working class, they were mostly positive. It's a bit patronising. You know, they're not very clever. Well, they're lovely, but they're stupid. It's a bit patronising, but it's mostly positive. Linked to that was the idea of the dignity of labour. The working class, they worked hard. They were very proud of working hard. They were honest, they were straightforward. These guys working, they are coopers making barrels. They're proud of that fact. They work hard. Their work is difficult. It's hard work. You know, it's backbreaking, but they're proud. They have dignity, the dignity of labour. So up until before the 60s, through the 60s and the 70s even, this is how the working class was shown. Yeah, mostly in a positive way. And then in the 80s, things started to change. Again, linked to the economy. So if you're an economic determinist, this is fairly easy to explain. The economy changed. The working class, lots of them, the unskilled ones, lost their jobs. Big factories closed, big industries closed, coal, steel, that sort of thing. This is the era of the Conservatives led by Margaret Thatcher. And at that point, the portrayal of the working class in our mass media began to change. From the 80s onwards, when the jobs went, when globalisation really kicked in, you had the undeserving poor. You had these sorts of headlines in newspapers. People on benefits are scroungers, skivers. This is where it all comes from. These people, they're unemployed because they're lazy. They're getting benefits when they shouldn't be. They're having too many children. It's not right. We're paying for it. They're the undeserving poor. They're poor, but they don't deserve our help. Yeah, they certainly don't deserve these massive mansions they get in, which just turns out not to be true. But it makes big headlines in newspapers. Has a high news value, we'd put it. Linked to that, working class often shown as stupid. Yeah. It's not even just a British thing. If you look at something like Friends, the stupid character is Joey, and Joey is working class. And lots of people laughing at our working class for being stupid. The royal family. Yeah, they're not very clever. So there's often a portrayal in the mass media of the working class as being quite thick. And then it moves on from just laughing at them being stupid to laughing at them with a bit of contempt, looking down on their chavs. look at these chavs. Aren't they disgusting? Aren't they funny? And then a whole raft of humour comes in, like Little Britain, the Vicky Pollard stuff. This is the comedy of contempt. They have contempt for the working class. They are chavs. Yeah. And it gets especially interesting if you think about someone like Matt Lucas, who's the comedian who does Vicky Pollard. And Matt Lucas went to this school. The Haberdashers Asker's Boys School, which currently costs, I think it's about 18 grand a year to go there. So Matt Lucas is posh. Matt Lucas is very middle class. And yet he feels okay to make these jokes about the working class that show contempt for them and leaves the rest of us to have contempt for the working class. Then you think about how are the middle class shown in comedy programmes, in entertainment programmes. Programmes like Outnumbered. Yeah. They're shown in a largely positive way. Yeah. So, what would a Marxist conflict theorist make of all this? Yeah, we'll talk about it in class, but I think you can get your head around this. A Marxist would say this is not a mistake. This is part of the middle class hegemony, they'd say, over the working class. You demonise them, you put them down, you make everyone hate them, you divide the working class amongst themselves. At the same time, you make the middle class look good. And how would the people in the media respond to these accusations? What would they say about it if you called them class haters? They'd say, no, we're just reflecting what's out there. So Matt Lucas would say, well, I didn't make this up. I'm making jokes about it, but it actually exists. I'm reflecting what's out there. That's how they'd respond. And in class, we'll do this essay. Discuss how far sociologists would agree that the stereotypes the mass media use are representative of contemporary Britain. How true are they, basically? And how false are they? Talk about theoretical perspectives, all that sort of business.